Yo, what's up everybody? Today I'm going to show you how to make some really creamy, delicious mashed potatoes from home, so let's get started. All right, so I just peeled 3 large potatoes. What we're going to do now is just cut the potatoes in half and then cut them into large chunks. And then we're just going to toss them back in the cold water so they don't oxidize or anything. I think people sometimes will cut their potatoes a little too small and then they'll end up dissolving in the water a little bit. So I like to do these pretty big chunks. Okay, so now I'm just gonna repeat that process with my other potatoes, and don't worry, I won't make you watch all of that. Boom. Now we have all the potatoes cut. I'm just gonna add it to the stove, put it on high, and then I'm just gonna add some salt and let it go. Now we're just adding a touch of salt just for the seasoning. Don't forget to toss on the lid, and then it should also take 20, maybe 30 minutes. I'm going to slice some chives, just to add some color to finished mashed potatoes, but don't worry about this if you don't feel like it. It might not be the prettiest chives ever, but they should work. All right, guys, we just sliced the chives with the potatoes cooking away. In around 20, 30 minutes, I'll show you. And if the potatoes are cooked, we'll move on to the next step. Sweet. All right, our potatoes are boiling away. You could use this time if you're cooking anything else, or you can just sit back and relax. Okay, so I'm just gonna pour the potatoes through the sieve. You can tell that they're cooked just by sticking a fork through. They should be able to go through pretty smooth without much pressure. All right, now this is the secret to getting super silky, smooth mashed potatoes like in restaurants. It's a bit of a process. We want to just push each potato through the fine sieve with a spoon. And you might be tempted, but trust me, just do one piece of potato at a time, or you can kind of overwork the gluten and it will make the mash pretty gloopy at the end. And if you can't be bothered with this step, you can always just use a masher, and it will still turn out pretty good. But trust me, this does make the mash just insane. With that last step, you could also use a food mill or a potato ricer, and it will be, a little bit faster, but I know not everyone has that stuff. Now we're just going to throw in a stick of butter, and we're going to melt that in a second. I'm also going to tie up some thyme with some butcher's twine, but if you don't have the butcher's twine, you can just throw in the thyme as is, and it will be good. Also, once the butter starts melting, remember to just crush a couple garlic cloves and toss that in. Now I'm just going to toss the thyme back in, and I'm going to add some milk in a second. And I'm just going to stir it around real quick just to make sure, the thyme gets nice and infused. Okay, now we're just going to add a couple glugs of milk, and this is going to help the mash just be really smooth and silky. And it definitely really helps with the texture of the mash. All right, here comes the moment of truth. We're just gonna add in a couple ladlefuls of the buttermilk mixture. And then we're gonna use our plastic spatula, and you could just use like a wooden spoon or anything, but we're gonna just kind of mash it around with that and until we get the nice smooth texture that we want. Now for probably like 20, 30 seconds, we're just gonna mash the potatoes, and I'll probably add a little bit more buttermilk in a second. And we're gonna, aim for that super, super smooth. You don't want to overwork the potato though, because, you can overwork the gluten and then you can make it, a little bit gloopy and stuff. So make sure you're not mashing too much, if that makes sense. All right, it's looking pretty good so far. In a second, I'm gonna also add some salt. I realized before I started filming this that I didn't have white pepper, which is great with mash. It's a little stronger, so don't add as much white pepper. But if you're making the mash, I definitely recommend adding a little pinch or two of the white pepper. Also, if you wanted to, some like grated Parmesan would be really good. If you wanted to roast some garlic, you could add that as well. And that'll make the mash even more next level. All right, our mash is looking pretty nice right now. It looks super smooth, as you can tell. We're pretty much done with the mashing stage. Now we're just gonna plate it up. You could add some more melted butter or some chives, and yeah, it's looking pretty nice. All right, guys, look at those delicious creamy mashed potatoes. I'm just gonna take a bite right now. Delicious. You get some of that thyme, the roasted garlic, really nice and salty, and it's just so creamy. Definitely give this recipe a try. It is beautiful. Okay. All right, now I'm just gonna toss some of the mashed potato into a bowl, and I'm going to try and make it look as pretty as I can, which is pretty easy because the mash is just so soft and good looking. I would say this mash is probably enough for maybe 2 or 3 people. If you have a lot of other food, maybe you could get away with 3 or 4 people. But yeah, I would, on instinct, probably say 2 people. Trust me though, once you make this and give it a taste, you are not going to want to share with anybody. All right, I'm just going to add some chives, give it a nice burst of color, and we should be done. Look, it looks super creamy. I'm pretty happy with this. These are my chives, not the prettiest chives ever. Yeah, guys, that is super creamy. It has great flavor. You get the thyme, the garlic. It's the creamiest mash you can make at home. I really recommend trying this recipe. Thanks, everybody, for watching. See you guys later.